Low-dose naltrexone is a product that it has to be compounded. It's not commercially available. One has to go to a compounding pharmacy in order to get this. Naltrexone is a product that's used in other areas. It is FDA approved for other things. Specifically, it's approved for opioid abuse and alcohol abuse. Several years ago, I think 20 years ago, Dr. Bahari up in New York City started seeing that some of his HIV positive patients were having a normalization of the CD4 cells. This normalization in an HIV population is unheard of. He theorized that it would help somebody with MS. If you believe in the theory, immunological theory of MS, then this would help that person. He gave it to a friend of his. She was on it for 3 or 4 years on a regular basis. She skipped 1 month and had her first exacerbation. She went back on LDN, and subsequently, 17 years later, she hasn't had an exacerbation. Why hasn't the FDA approved this? And the reason basically comes down to money. In order to do a clinical trial on this, you're looking in excess of $5 or $6 to $10 million. There's no drug company that will take a non-patentable drug into the marketplace without having some assurance of getting their return on their investment. This is not a double-blinded study. This is not rigorously controlled. It will never be, okay, because again, money, 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 money. It will never be. We don't have enough money, and we don't generate enough money from LDN in order to do a double-blind study. Wish we did, but we can't. We don't. Okay? So, there is also a quote that's floating around the internet, okay? And sometimes they refer to the quote as a compounding pharmacist someplace. Sometimes they actually refer to me. If I had MS, the one drug that I would be on without any question, that isn't to say that I wouldn't be on other drugs, but the one drug that I would be on is low-dose naltrexone. Okay? I'm like a born-again low-dose naltrexone guy. Tonight we're going to talk about LDN, low-dose naltrexone. Fast forward from about 1999, which is when I compounded my first naltrexone prescription. We started to fit the naltrexone numbers together, and there was an astounding number or astounding lack of exacerbations. I was invited to go to the New York Academy of Science up in New York and give a presentation on some data that was generated by the pharmacy in the fall and winter of last year. The data is incredible.
My name is Fritz Bell, and for about 5 years people knew me as Good Shape. As Good Shape, I was the husband of a woman with a severe case of multiple sclerosis, and having spent $100,000 on trying to find a cure, in desperation I went to the internet. I found out there were people willing to talk there. I set up a message board and an information board to hopefully disseminate other people's ideas on possible cures or remedies for multiple sclerosis. And it turned out to my own amazement that the internet did attract desperate people with multiple sclerosis who had run out of ideas for how to treat their disease, and they came to the internet. Many of them came to my website and shared the ideas. And in fact, I guess one of the things I'm proudest of is that a just slight story about a friend of Dr. Bahari's who had multiple sclerosis. When it was reported on another website, one of our people picked it up and put it on our website in February of 2000. And I would say within 30 days, at least 100 people on our website were taking low-dose naltrexone for multiple sclerosis.
I was diagnosed in November of 2004. Over the past years, I'd had symptoms over the years and would go to doctors, and they would always misdiagnose me with different things like anxiety, panic attacks, or like my legs went numb one time and they did nothing. It was off and on over the years. It wasn't continuous, but it was off and on, and they would always tell me it was like all in my head, or, you know, that it was something else, or panic anxiety attacks, or, you know, that it was nothing. It was just all in my head. They had me on like stuff for like Zoloft and Klonopin for panic and anxiety attacks. I was in pretty bad shape at that point in time. I was still working, and I found out that I was getting more tired every day and would have to come home and take a nap and sleep to make it through the day, and then get up, and then I started getting pains in my back and my neck. And then I went for a week still working with being numb from my chest all the way down to my feet.
Does anyone know the name and address of those guys who broke the Watergate scandal news?
The problem is the power of the pharmaceutical industry, which in my lifetime as a doctor has gone from being way down the list to being the single most powerful industry in the world.
Evidence-based medicine is meant to inform us what level of evidence do we have for the practices we engage in. It's not designed to stifle trying new things. It's just designed to admit we don't have all the evidence we would like to have, but here's the evidence we have for the treatment we have under consideration. And I think the greatest mistake for evidence-based medicine is that unless it's a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, that it can't possibly work. And I think that's something that the medical profession in general is going to suffer seriously from unless we address it and say, you don't need that. You need good clinical judgment, you need to make a good clinical assessment, and then you declare the level of evidence you have, and then you attempt a treatment and judge the outcome even by clinical experience.
Don't beat a path to somebody who invents a better mousetrap. They just don't want to hear about something that challenges the old paradigm.
It's not, MS doesn't just affect one person. It affects the whole circle of people involved with that person.
We have thousands of kids now that have recovered from autism, and when doctors tell people their child is not treatable and to get ready to put them in an institution, they are wrong.
Now I feel, hang on a minute here, we've got something we can really work with here. This drug kicks butt. And
I found it fascinating, the diversity of the diseases that were being treated. Fascinated and concerned.
And when you think that in Africa alone, there are probably 20 to 30 million people for whom the new antiretrovirals, they'll never get them. Too costly, out of reach, the infrastructure isn't there to bring it. Who could benefit from taking low-dose naltrexone? It's really a tragedy.
I don't know what to do, except to say, well, actually, I know of a Professor Smith who's actually publishing some very good data on this. Maybe you might consider it and use it yourself, because I'm not trained in research, I'm trained in clinical practice, and I can pick up things from clinical practice. I give something and it works, I try it in somebody and it works again, I say this works.
And it's not that there's a conspiracy against LDN. They don't need a conspiracy. The system is set up so perfectly that, you know, we're just like idiots banging against this big wooden building that nobody's gonna, you know, they don't have to open the door, so they won't.
I'm a duck guy. If it looks like a duck and it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it lives with ducks and it has eggs, it's probably a duck. Now, I could be wrong. It could be a platypus. I doubt it.